All right, y'all, we are back with another reaction video, and we are just expanding on our theme, our agricultural theme around the world, looking at current events and news. And what we want to look at today is a clip. Now, what's important about this clip, one, this is from an activist in India, and it is from 2019. So I think it's incredibly time sensitive and relevant to what is currently going on, and the people, places, and things she's talking about is incredibly relevant and in the news. So it's kind of showing you how this current problem and crisis has been in the making for quite some time by design, like we spoke last time or maybe a couple videos ago about the Club of Rome in 1970 and all that stuff. So today we're going to be watching a video. This was on French news back in 2019, and they were interviewing Vandana Shiva, and let's start the video.
Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. My guest today is Vandana Shiva. She is a world-famous environmental activist from India. She's a laureate of the Alternative Nobel Prize in 1993. She's author of numerous books. Her latest is called Oneness versus 1%. Thank you very much for being on the phone.
My pleasure.
I want to begin early on.
The title of the book is One Earth, One Humanity versus the 1%. And there's a lot of, we've been talking a lot about the 1%ers and the globalists and the big money guys like the Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. And we're going to see a reoccurring theme here that Vandana is going to reference. And she wrote about this in her book, which I don't know exactly when it was published, but obviously it was published before 2019 when they had this interview.
You were not supposed to be an activist. You were a physicist, you wanted to work in nuclear energy, and then you came across in the early 1970s what is known in India as the Chipko movement. Can you explain us how you came across?
Yes, I was training to be in India's nuclear establishment, but then my sister woke me up to the hazards of nuclear. She was a medical doctor, and I went deeper into theoretical physics. I was going to Canada to do a PhD in the foundations of quantum theory, and before
The reason I thought this was a very interesting perspective, one, it's coming from a woman. Two, this woman is highly educated, like nuclear physicist status and quantum physics and all these different things. So she's incredibly educated, incredibly knowledgeable, yet she still sees this urgent need and this food crisis that she identified all the way back in the 70s once again. And she is continuing warn people about what's being done and who the perpetrators are and how they're doing it.
I wanted to visit some of my favorite forests in the Himalaya. I've grown up in the Himalayan forest. And this forest I had trekked in was gone. The stream that came from this oak forest was gone. And while returning to Delhi, I talked to a tea shop owner, and he talked about how there's a new movement called Chipko. So in my heart, I said, I'm going to come back every vacation and be a volunteer for this movement. Women came out to say, we're going to hug the trees. You cannot cut the trees because from the trees come our water. The trees stabilize the mountain and prevent landslides. The trees prevent floods and droughts, and they also give us everything we need. We will be huggers of trees. The name Chipko means to hug. And I learned all my lessons of ecological activism from the women of the Himalaya who had never been to school but knew everything about ecology, knew everything about biodiversity. What they called soil, water, and pure air today talked about as ecological functions.
So what Vandana is talking about are the locals that actually, the real small-scale farmers like us and like others like us that actually do the things, do all the things and interact with our environment interact with our community and interact with in husbandry with our animals, and also interact ecologically. Like I said, here on our farm, we are trying to implement permaculture principles and work with nature and the different systems that God has created by design for all of us to work together as humans working with nature to create abundance. And that's the premise of permaculture, is there's an interaction, a human interaction with nature that actually produces abundance at the fringes and all that stuff. If you read Bill Mollison or guys like Jeff Lawton, that's all that they talk about. That's what we've been attempting, and we've seen some success, and we continue to see success.
The forests, that forests are not timber mines, and a lot of my change in the understanding of the fact that nature is the basis of economy came from my engagement with Chipko. My respect for women's knowledge, indigenous knowledge, came from my engagement with Chipko. And it totally turned my own head upside down, because physics, high in the world, something others don't. And I realized everyone has knowledge, and you must respect it.
So you've became really engaged in this. You've been an opponent of big multinational corporations, especially Monsanto, to name just one, because of what you describe as their nefarious influence on agriculture. There are a number of examples. There was the BT cotton.
So she's been an opponent of multinational corporations like Monsanto. And these are these same multinational corporations that influence these oligarchs and this technocratic oligarchy that literally designs all these issues and problems and creates them, and then sweeps in to create a solution, problem, reaction, solution.
In India especially, and you said, this is not a matter of helping farmers grow their land, but actually making them dependent on those big corporations.
The entry of corporations into agriculture is so wrong, because the corporations only bring poisons. Most of them have roots in Hitler's Germany, in making gases to kill people in concentration camps.
That was not their aim. Their aim was to give people enough.
No, the aim was to make chemicals that kill people. After the wars, they said, why should we stop making these chemicals? Let's say now they...
So the reference she's making is to IG Farben, and if you just study IG Farben, you'll find out where Monsanto came from. And then, once Monsanto had all these class action lawsuits, then all of a sudden, this really old company, Bayer, showed up and bought up Monsanto, and they kind of erased the name Monsanto, and now it's Bayer. And if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll just find out that IG Farben was broken up, the monopoly was broken up, and basically Monsanto was an offshoot of that, and Bayer was an offshoot of that, and they just got the band back together again, and Bayer bought it up basically to kind of like help deflect on all these huge cancer lawsuits, that these gigantic cancer judgments that have been awarded for Monsanto to pay. And she's talking about how, in World War II, IG Farben were the ones making the different gases and whatnot for the gas chambers. And basically they were like, wow, well, this is really lucrative. Let's just find different uses for these poisons and toxins. So they're like, well, we can call it fertilizer, we can call it pesticides, we could call it chemotherapy. We can, and we'll just save everybody. I mean, we're going to cure cancer with it. We're going to kill the pests on your plants. We're going to make your plants grow bigger. And the other interesting little fact about this video is you have the French news person, and he's trying to demonize her and make her look kooky. And she's much smarter than he is. So she's much smarter than I am. But she does a really great job of just staying on point and getting her message across.
And the other thing too, speaking of fertilizers and pesticides, every time we meet any of our fellow ranchers around here, and they use fertilizers and pesticides and everything like that, it eats a lot on their profit margins. And I worked on a ranch where they dumped, no joke, over $100,000 a year in Grazon and Roundup and several other types of poisons that they would dump on their pastures and on the cows and everything like that. And just so then I guess their pastures would look like your lawn, because they couldn't just deal with seeing a couple goat weeds out there. They couldn't just start to practice more permaculture ways because they were doing it very big scale. And on top of that, they were just breaking even every year because they were selling to the big feedlots by the hundreds. I didn't want to say anything because, you know, I was the new guy there working, and it was totally a broken system. They ran 300 head of cows, and they literally could probably make 5 times the amount of money they were making then if they only had like 100 cows or maybe 50 cows. You might be saying, why? Well, if they would actually control, if they actually had a customer base and would set up a little local farm shop or something, they could sell less beef, but they wouldn't have to sell their beef for $1 a pound or so. And
they could sell at a much higher profit margin.
Yeah, exactly.
And do less work.
Yep, feed the community.
And do it organically and offer a better product at a higher price, at a higher price point. So they would have less expenditures, have less work output, sell less product at a higher profit margin, make more money, and actually have to not work as hard.
Exactly.
So that's what you call win-win, and that is the concept behind permaculture, working with nature and the systems that are created versus working against it. And the end result and the end output is a better quality product. And it's not always ideal, and it's not always perfect. And you know, we don't spray our trees, and we have fruit, and sometimes they don't look perfect.
Whatever.
And sometimes they'll have a little bug bite on them or whatever. Or sometimes they'll look heirloom, you know. But that's the way food's supposed to look, you know.
Not supposed to look perfect.
And as our infrastructure and our permaculture systems develop and mature, you know, the productivity and the output matures. It's not like you can't fix everything overnight.
Nope.
And you can't allow the system to heal and regenerate itself and build itself back up. Same thing with the nutrient in the soil. It's not going to happen overnight.
Nope.
Now they'll kill pests. They will give fertilizer. Fertilizers were made in the same factories that made explosives and ammunition for Hitler's Germany.
That's not the same goal.
No, the companies are the same and the processes are the same. So your rhetoric might change, but the goal does not. The materiality of a death-making
Yeah, she says, look, your rhetoric might change, your definition might change, your application might change, but it's still an explosive or a poison.
Yeah.
And the reporter guy's like, that's not what they intended it. Well, actually, yes, it is. And that was the end result. So even if they had good intentions, right?
Yeah.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's a saying, right? You can have all the supposed great intentions in the world. What we learn, like, from companies like Johnson & Johnson, when they knew that their baby powder had asbestos in it, right? And they withheld that knowledge. It had nothing. They could have all the good intentions in the world, which they didn't. They had very nefarious intentions.
Wicked.
And they gave people cancer, and they knew it. Same thing here with Monsanto, same thing with Bayer, same thing with IG Farben. And what's very interesting about these multinational conglomerates, it's the same exact ones.
Yeah.
Like IG Farben is just repackaged, and they repackage it again.
chemical doesn't change when you say it's now for feeding the world. I did a book on the violence of the Green Revolution because Punjab, the most fertile land of India, was destroyed. And then when Monsanto came in as a result of globalization, because till the 90s, 90% of the seed was in farmers' hands, and the rest came from the public sector, from government labs, research institutions. So Monsanto came illegally, didn't take any approval, with the promise that they would increase farmers' incomes and have this magical technology to control pests. Well, the bollworm is now resistant. Farmers are in debt. Farmers are committing suicide. The area has been ruined. The pollinators are gone. There's no pollination. The groundwater's gone. So there's nothing about the ecosystem. So I save seeds. We brought organic cotton seeds back. We work with...
So these multinational huge corporations come in, they sweep in with their chemicals, and they're going to help you have higher yields. You can watch a video right now by Bill Gates. He's going to tell you about how in Africa they're going to make it all better by bringing in fertilizers. There's a fertilizer shortage. I wonder how they're going to afford fertilizer. And they're going to bring in these better seeds. And what they're talking about is GMO, right? And what we know about GMO and Monsanto's GMO seeds is they own the reproductive rights to their seeds, so you can never collect your own seed and replant. You have to buy from them every year. You have to buy their seed by law. It's almost like a immune system on demand. Like if somebody was able to hijack your immune system with a shot or something, and then the only way that you could quote unquote remain healthy is if you had to get a shot or maybe a booster every 6 months or so.
And we've already, I've been seeing it going around lately as there's seed shortages, but what year was that? Was that 2021? That was that the New York Times that came out and said, don't reuse your seeds or don't save your own seeds because, don't save your seeds and don't share your seeds or don't buy any seeds from local people because you're endangered of whatever type of diseases or whatever. And you got to buy them from certified seed companies, that the USDA puts their stamp on.
Yeah, like you can't have a farmer's seed swap like we have here every year at the Master Gardeners Club. We have a seed swap in every county. And you can't do that. That would be too normal, I guess. I don't know.
Work with the Gandhi ashrams on hand spinning and hand weaving of this organic cotton. The economy in the villages where we work has jumped tenfold because now the wealth is staying in the village rather than being siphoned off as Monsanto's profits. And I read a new study that says because we've saved seeds, we brought local seeds that can be saved back into the economy. Monsanto has lost 11 million.
Right, so you hurt the big multinational corporations and you create and build up and reinforce your community. And the other thing is when you have a seed that works in your local area very well and you continue to foster that seed, that seed continues to improve and improve and improve and get better. And it's not, the genetics of that seed is not owned by a multinational,
not mutated,
technocratic corporation. And people want to say, see, this is what's wrong with capitalism. No, free markets and laissez-faire and a free market system, which is true, pure capitalism, is not this what we currently understand and what's pitched as capitalism, this intergalactic multinational corporations that influence and just control absolutely everything, like you see in all these scorched earth dystopian movies and all this stuff, or like we see in these dystopian novels or whatever.
I want to get to your latest book because you widen, I would say, your attacks is not only Monsanto and the likes, but also others. You attack what you describe as the billionaire dictators, especially one man, I should say, Bill Gates, who you describe as the Christopher Columbus, I'm quoting you, of modern times, and that's not a compliment, obviously, whose mission is to impose, quote-unquote, genetically modified organisms and digital dictatorship to small farmers across the world. Bill Gates, who's donated billions to improve public health in poor countries and so on, you're saying?
Well, first off, Bill just has such a heart for people. First off, he had a great operating system that he invented, that has lots of viruses, and it was like the worst operating system, and he gave it away because he just loved everybody. He gave it away, and I'm being facetious for all of you that need a translator. But now he's just going to give away these billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah, he's just giving away his wealth,
And somehow, by doing that, he manages to become wealthier and wealthier and wealthier.
How's
and he
that?
has this great concern for all these poor people all around the globe. And he just so happens to be the largest landholder of farmland in the United States.
No way.
Which is currently in the news. He just won a lawsuit buying several thousand acres in North Dakota. In 2020, he owned 242,000 acres, and now I think he's up to 270 some thousand acres, and he is far and away the largest owner of farmland in America, and he has been buying farmland since 2013. So with all his different, investment companies and shell companies.
Essentially, he's a dictator, and he's there not to help, but to make people poorer, more dependent.
Well, Bill Gates is actually continuing the work of Monsanto because Monsanto had so many movements, and we held a tribunal on Monsanto. A buyer bought up Monsanto, but when Bill Gates pours money into Africa for feeding the poor in Africa and preventing famine, what's he doing? He's pushing the failed green revolution. He's pushing chemicals, pushing GMOs, pushing patents, and now pushing new...
Knowingly, or he thinks it's a good thing, and he...
I mean, he keeps doing this. He's been doing this for a long time in Africa, and there's certain countries in Africa where they're like, we don't want him back here, too many birth defects, and we don't want his poison and his trash. Africa, he's doing it. In India, he's doing it everywhere where there's poor, where these huge multinational corporations can come in and scoop up all of the productivity and all of the viability and just leave a scorched earth behind. And that's, we can look at Bill Gates's track record of the countries he's already been into for 10 or 20 years. And there's not this great, beautiful, wonderful trail of productivity that goes behind him.
Nope.
And he may be wrong.
Well, there's
it's not
enough,
the same thing.
There's enough evidence of what it does. There are enough letters to him from farmers of Africa, from governments of Africa to say, this is not the way to go. The United Nations accepts agroecology, working with ecological systems, as the best way to go. Now, Bill Gates is trying very hard to shift the patenting issue now to digital. So you just take a genomic map and you say, my invention, you don't create a seed. Seed is self-organized, self-making, and evolution in continuity. Just by making a map, a genome, and you have no idea what the seed does. And this is something he's pushing very, very hard. My book records how he financed DeepSeek. I've talked about how he's pirated seeds we have saved that tolerates salt and floods. And he says invention. This biopiracy is a bit like Columbus, where Columbus is supposed to have discovered America, when he basically went as a pirate. Why do I call him today's?
Well, and if you know Bill Gates' background and the story behind his operating system, he basically stole it. And then there's a lot of, his parents were real big eugenicists and all that stuff, and his dad was the head of Planned Parenthood. So he's just continuing. And if you get into eugenicists and Planned Parenthood and the ties to the Nazis, you go right back to the Monsanto, Bayer, IG Farben. So there's an enormous amount of corollaries and overlap, and the beat goes on, and these same people and these same families and these same bloodlines continue to just do their ill will towards the rest of us commoners, and they always manage to aggrandize themselves and be billionaires somehow.
Is Columbus, because he's carving out new colonies. Software should have stayed open software.
So you say he has a strategy, a nefarious strategy, what you describe as philanthrocapitalism, is a nefarious enterprise. And so you're not saying he's using the wrong methods, he's pursuing a wrong goal with self-interest. You also attack Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, saying they're all linked together. I mean, this reeks a bit of conspiracy theory, doesn't it?
Well, you know, my book.
That's how you demonize it. You use the word founded by the CIA and created by the CIA in the 70s or whatever, conspiracy theory. And that's how you just demonize everything. When people are presenting, here you have an intelligent, informed woman that's written on this and documented it, and now all of a sudden she's some kind of conspiracy theorist coming from some news jockey guy that sits at a table and reads off a teleprompter.
Is based on the new evidence that's coming out. All you have to do is see the ownership, and I have data in the book on how there's common ownership. We stopped Mark Zuckerberg from trying to get into Indian agriculture. It was a big mobilization of people who believe in the open internet.
What did he want to do?
Well, you know, basically what they do is they mine the data from the farmers. And right now, all over the world, there's new debates on privacy issues, on the data mining. There's new books, a new form of capitalism, which is surveillance capitalism, where you basically have turned human beings into your new raw material. So Bill Gates does both.
She's talking about metadata. You know, what they're going to do with this metadata, what they're going to do with this CBDC, what they're going to do with this Fed coin, Fed crypto, and all this stuff, and blockchain, and track trace database, and panopticon, and the Internet of Things, and 5G, 6G, and all this stuff. This is the implementation of a complete and total and utter surveillance state where big data and big tech mines all of your metadata, right? Yep. And then they have robots and AI do everything for us, and then we collect basic universal income. And if we don't hold the right viewpoints and the right opinions, and if we don't have the appropriate social credit score, they just turn off our wallet, and you can't buy or sell. And I think there's written in a book somewhere, it was a book made of 66 books. It was the last chapter, and it said something about buying or selling, and you couldn't buy or sell. But for some reason, it doesn't come to me right now. It actually does, but I'm making it funny. Okay.
He takes living resources and our seeds and biodiversity, mines it into data and wants ownership along with his friends. And Mark Zuckerberg mines your data and your behaviors and turns it into the raw material, both of corporate world for selling things, which is why strange advertisements pop up after you've sent a message to a friend, and manipulating elections. I have a chapter in the book on the hijack of democracy. You have enough data on what happened with Facebook selling data to Cambridge Analytica and how we are popping up with artificial intelligence.
Facebook selling data to Cambridge Analytica. Who hired Cambridge Analytica? Oh, that's right. America's savior, Trump, hired Cambridge Analytica to to get elected. He hired Cambridge Analytica. And what do we know about Cambridge Analytica, besides the fact that they're a CIA cutout, is that they have been actively involved in many color revolutions all around the world. And every time these color revolutions happen, just great Republic and Democratic things happen where all the people are free and all the tyrants and all the dictators, they all go away. And it's very interesting, Cambridge Analytica. And it's real interesting how all the usual suspects pop back up. We're talking about food, and the next thing you know, we're talking about digital piracy, Cambridge Analytica, Donald Trump, and the whole nine. It's very interesting. It's a very small group of people, y'all.
Religious leaders, this is a major threat to democracy.
So this is why you're calling them billionaire dictators, because you think they're not helping democracy, but actually threatening and even killing it? I mean, isn't this too much?
No, I have grown up in an India that was post-independence. I've grown up in an India that had absolutely no corporations. I've grown up in an India where democracy works. And therefore, when I see the imposition of digital transactions and criminalization of cash between poor people, I basically see this as a dictatorship. I call it digital dictatorship. When I watch, not just in India, but in Africa and other parts of the world, now that we have the...
It's an oligarchy. That's where WEF, that's where World Economic Forum, Bilderberg come in. And people like to do all these talking around WEF and Bilderberg. And we just need to fire everybody and reelect all new people that are good and all this stuff. And there's a difference between WEF and the deep state and all this stuff. But I mean, there's so much overlap and corollary and, you know, deep state participants and military industrial complex and heads of state and all these different things from all these enemy countries that supposedly hate each other, you know, when it's convenient on the geopolitical stage to hate each other, while independently working with each other to build these different places in Qatar and all this stuff, and Estonia and all these other globalist ideologies of communism. Just a bunch of repackaged communism, global communism.
The data that is showing that native seeds have more nutrition, they produce more food, they have no cost because you don't have to use chemicals, that local biodiversity is the way to feeding the world, in spite of all that evidence, in spite of the evidence in the United Nations, in the FAO, in UNCTAD, every agency.
Local biodiversity, guys like Alan Savory in the Savory Institute, guys like Joel Salatin, guys like Jeff Lawton, right? Guys like Bill Mollison. They've proven that this organic permaculture approach works. Not only does it work, it's very profitable. They've proved the profitability of it and how it works. And they proved that it's a solution, and they proved that we can reverse all these industrial atrocities. We can reverse, and we can repair, and we can rebuild, and we can have healthy food, right? And we can have it for our community. We can share it with our community, we can sell it to our community, but we cannot allow these multinational corporations and these billionaire elites and, dare I say, our quote-unquote elected officials to continue to just eviscerate everything that we hold dear, everything that is literally required to actually support life on this planet. It's a scorched earth approach, and it's the Catherine Austin Fitts calls it the slow kill, and they've been doing it since the 90s. You know, everything from sugar substitutes to you name it. I mean, that's all some of these sugar substitutes were just different poisons and different chemotherapies, and they repackaged it into artificial sweetener. I mean, it's the same thing. They do it. These chemical companies do it over and over again. Just repackage, give it a different give it a different title. It has a different side effect, and what you do is you take that side effect and you say, oh, this is what it's going to fix, and then you name that side effect. You get to repackage and you get to sell it again.
Bill Gates is still imposing and forcing GMOs, which is a failed enterprise. And he's not just imposing GMOs, he's taking what has failed and rejected by governments. My government threw the BT aubergine of Monsanto out. Bill Gates resurrects it in Bangladesh. We rejected the golden rice for solving the problem of blindness. He finances it to continue through Philippines. So he's taking all the failed projects with the wrong thinking that life is like a word program and can be chopped and cut and pasted when it's so amazing.
Right, they take a failed program, right, they tried it, it failed miserably. That particular country said, no way, get it out of here. And he's like, oh, hey, wait a minute. We still got all this product. We need to move it somewhere, like any good drug dealer, right? And then he pawns it off on some other country, kind of like AIDS-tainted medication and stuff, you know, that they pawned off on the UK that was rejected here in America. That kind of stuff. Well, and this is the kind of stuff Bill Gates and Monsanto and the ilk are, this is the kind of shell game that they're playing.
Amazing complexity of self-organization, and scientists call it autopoiesis, self-organization, writing your own poetry. That's what life does. He is absolutely ignoring all of this new knowledge that new science is giving us and imposing a failed technology with a huge cost to the planet, only so there can be monopolies and people and farmers aren't free to have their seed.
Vandana Shiva, obviously you have strong views, and we're happy that you were able to share them with us. Thank you very much for watching this interview here on France 24.
So there you have it, y'all. So that was Vandana Shiva. That was back in 2019. I was going to see if it gave me the date that it actually aired in 2019. October 23rd of 2019. And she was already warning folks about a lot of the things that are coming to fruition now.
Yeah.
And that's why we wanted to do these different watch along and response videos, just talking about how, just like the pandemic and different things we had last year, whenever it was, right? That was a global issue. It was a global problem. It wasn't China, right? And it wasn't this, and it wasn't the, this was a global, it was a global coup. This was a global conspiracy that was perpetrated by the countries of the world against its own citizens on a global level. This wasn't a couple small people pulling the strings in one particular country. And that's the same thing that's happened with agriculture. It's the same thing that's happened with big ag. It's the same thing that's happened with the military industrial complex. It's the same exact strategy. It's the same exact modus operandi, but they just do it in every sector. You know, like I said, it's like a scorched earth approach. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Yeah, I hope it motivates you. I hope you share it with someone. What do you got, Matt?
And I just wanted to say one thing. We got a couple comments on the last video, and they're like, why are you even making these videos about, why are you even talking about all the stuff that's going around the world? And the reason why we are spreading the news about this is because they want full control over all of us, because they're evil, wicked people. And if we just comply and we don't spread the news and we just be silent and we're like, it's fine, just let them do their thing, well, we will own nothing and be happy. So
right, and resistance to tyranny is allegiance and service to God. And yes, we understand God is sovereign. We understand that God's in control.
Yes.
But God gave us a brain, right?
He did.
And He gave us the children of Issachar that had an understanding of the times, you know. And if we are awake and aware, and we're not stinking lulled to sleep by our Black Mirror, or doped up on Coca-Colas and Mountain Dew, and fat and obese, and have all these ailments and whatnot, you know, it all goes hand in glove.
Yeah.
Keep eating GMO and find out what's happened to you. I don't know why I'm sick. I don't know why I have cancer. Well, you're
the product.
You've eaten. Yeah, you're the natural byproduct of everything that you consumed on the Black Mirror, which actually controlled everything that you put in your mouth.
True.
And it's why your health is the way it is. And, you know, we're just trying to create awareness. We're just trying to get you to think. And we're just trying to put information out there that's not really readily available. It's kind of stifled, and it goes a little bit under the radar. And it directly impacts us. I mean, we're just this little farm, and we're just trying to get better and keep honing our skills and growing our community, and creating relationships, creating friendships. And we love y'all. We thank y'all for watching. We appreciate all the new subscribers. And share these videos, like, share, subscribe. Check us out on all the different platforms, Rumble, Odyssey.
All the freedom ones.
And share it wherever you can. And we'll see y'all in the next video.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.